I remember being intimidated. Now I had been drinking, so I, wasn't that intimidated, but I was, it was like not my element, like not at all. And I remember one of my buddies saying like, apparently like some of the punches were like spiked. So
I don't doubt that
mindful of them, like, hey, don't drink off, some of the punches if they've got drugs or something in them. So I was like, okay. Like, it was just weird. Like, I was intimidated. Everywhere I turned, it was intimidated.
I wasn't intimidated. It was an 80s pigeon fest when I was there. It was like this guy
Scott
that
Baio.
was inside. Oh, yeah, he was there. He was there. And he was acting like the king of the county. And I was like, dude, like, I'm a nobody. Like, you toss around Carolina Hurricane at the Playboy Mansion, you got zero game. Zero.
We were out one time in L.A., and Scott Baio was there, and he was being a hero, and a few guys on our team were calling him Chachi from Happy Days. He did not like being called Chachi. But it was like, that's how you were known, like you're typecast. So you run into Jason Alexander, he's George from Seinfeld, right? Like certain people, Kramer, Michael Richards, but it's like that was Chachi Arcola. So the guys were like calling him Chachi. He was so rattled, but nothing you can do. Chachi, yeah. Apparently he was there all the time. There's certain guys that were fixtures there.
You think it's like a Tuesday night thing in the Mansion, Wednesday, like every night of the week there's something good going down? There must be.
Dude, the weird thing was you couldn't drive there. You had to got to go to UCLA and take a shuttle bus to get to the Mansion.
They take you up there
and I got the word. I got one of my former teammates who played on Los Angeles, and he said, "We're going tonight, and somebody bailed. Do you want to go?" And I had a 3:00 game the next day versus Anaheim. So I'm like, I got to weigh my options here. And I called him back 2 minutes later, and I said, I'll meet you at UCLA.
I'll be there. I won't miss the
I was just like, this is a one-shot deal. I'm not going there to get plastered. I got a game tomorrow. I actually scored a sick goal the next game. But I was sneaking through, like I was a ninja walking in that hotel at 3 a.m. because I couldn't get out of there. I wasn't hammered. I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I couldn't get home.
Yeah.
I was literally like a robber. I was crawling on the floor looking for coaches in the lobby.
Yeah, I think the only way I'm getting to the Playboy Mansion is like Johnny Drama in the back of the trunk in Entourage.
Honestly,
that's probably the only way. And he didn't even get in.
I don't want to say it was overrated, but it was weird for me. I just kind of... I kind of soaked it all in.
Overrated was about appropriate.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I can't even imagine is it still open now?
I don't know.
Or
it's a good question.
Did it get sold?
You know what? We'll ask Dan Rapaport. He's going to join us. He's an LA guy. They're right by the Mansion. I'm sure Rapaport, if he can take a peek in there, he will.
Well, he might know the history of it. Might know what's going on with it now.
Yes.
Who knows?
So we'll find that out at 6:30 when he joins us. Again, it's U.S. Open week. I am fired up for this tournament. It's going to be an exceptional U.S. Open following what was an incredible RBC Canadian Open and was not so incredible for the Toronto Blue Jays last night. That's putting it mildly. They get absolutely bludgeoned by Baltimore, a team that is playing such good baseball, has such a bright future as well. And Keegan Matheson from MLB.com, he is live from Baltimore, joining us ahead of Jays O's Game 2. Keegan, good evening. I mean, the Baltimore Orioles, man, this is a team that is nasty right now. They're playing great baseball, and it does not look like they are going to be falling off a cliff anytime soon. Thank you for doing this. Your thoughts on the O's and what the Jays are facing heading into tonight?
Yeah, the O's are legit. It's taken a while for them to get here. There were some very ugly years. But not only are they good right now, they're going to be good for a long time. This team is going to be a legitimate problem for years and years. On our MLB Pipeline Top 100, they've got 8 guys on that. That's the most in Major League Baseball. A lot of them are in AAA. If Baltimore spends some money, and that's still a bit of an if, this team is going to be a juggernaut, a legitimate MLB juggernaut for a few years. So add that in with the Rays, with the Yankees, and it sucks to be in this division. I've said it before. I don't care how many times people tell me it's a great division, it's competitive, you love to be tested. No, you'd rather be in a worse division, and this is a scary place to be.
Keegan, they're in one of the positive spin-out cycles of a rebuild. You're terrible, and then you draft well, you get prospects, and then all of a sudden you've got a good ball club. And the next phase now is keeping all the young guys and making sure that they're happy and they don't want to bolt the organization. We were just talking about sports franchises and how the players hold the power now and they dictate where they want to go. And Baltimore is an example of that. They're on the up and up, but now they got to keep the guys.
Yeah, when we get to this stage of a rebuild in any sport, I think fans start to look at it as if all of these guys grew up down the street from Camden Yards, like they're all from Baltimore. It's not how it works. This is about money. It's always going to be about money. So as these years go on, and as Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, some of these core pieces who are going to debut soon, as they get through those early years, well, does one guy get extended early? Do two? Do three of them? Does another guy want money? We'll see. Lots of ways that this can get interesting, but man, do they have the pieces. Do they ever have the pieces in place? It's easy to compare this to where the Blue Jays were a couple of years back, but the Blue Jays didn't have 8 guys in the top 100. A couple of those will fail. A couple won't work out. But, man, this is as good a spot as I've seen an organization in years in terms of next 5 years, what it could be.
Keegan, they got dummied yesterday. You need Barrios to have a big start. Obviously, I think he's won his last 4, so he's rolling. Do you expect him to just continue on this nice pace here?
I do, guys, and he has been doing it almost quietly. I think, if anything, I'm at the top of the list of people who need to give him a bit more respect for what he's done these last 10, 11 starts. There have been bigger stories. Manoah in the rotation certainly has taken a lot of that spotlight away. But this is a very Jose Barrios way of doing things. He's never going to have that 7 innings, 14 strikeouts, Kevin Gausman type of start. But there's going to be a lot of 6 innings, a couple of earned runs, 4 or 5 strikeouts. Nothing wows you. Nothing jumps out and makes you say, holy crap, what an outing. But he does the same thing every time. He was so bad last year and has been so good lately. I think he deserves a ton of credit for that, and he's doing it in a very Jose Barrios way. He's back to living up to that contract.
Keegan Matheson is our guest from MLB.com. He's live from Baltimore ahead of Jays-O's game number 2. Sounds like there will be some lineup changes, Keegan, and the way the Jays have been hitting in the last month, probably warranted. What can you tell us about those?
Yeah, so down at the bottom, you're going to see Kevin Kiermaier batting number 7 with Kevin Biggio at 9. Now, that is a bit of tinkering. A lot of this comes down to let's change it up and see what happens. Kevin Kiermaier has been fantastic offensively. I can't believe I'm saying that in the middle of June. I didn't think that would happen, but he really has been, and credit to him. Kevin Biggio, they hope, will turn the lineup over. We'll see. He's had a couple of good games trying to turn this around. Where it gets interesting is Dalton Varsho at 3, ahead of Vladdy at 4. Now, John Schneider says that is to get some guys on base ahead of Vladdy. Well, so far this season, that's meant a lot of double plays. He's at 9 home runs this year. I can't believe that this power has not come along yet. You can turn it into a math test with numbers and expected stats and exit velocities. At a certain point, who cares? They count what actually happens on the field, not what was supposed to happen based on numbers. And it's the middle of June. The Blue Jays need to see Vladdy from 2021, not an 800 OPS guy. They've got lots of those. They can find those elsewhere. They need Vladdy to be the superstar, that transformative guy he has been in the past, but haven't seen that in a year and a half.
What's more important, the real Vladdy showing up or the record against the AL East? Because both are suboptimal right now.
Oh, man, goes hand in hand, I guess, at the end. But that record against the AL East is tough because at the end of the year, are you going to catch the Rays at this point? Let's live in reality. Probably not. The Orioles look better than the Blue Jays right now. They might run away. But by the end of the season, in September, whether we're talking about the division guys or if we're talking about the wild card, teams like the Astros, the Angels, the Mariners, if they catch up again, you're probably going to be looking at some tiebreaker scenarios and win-loss records against a lot of these teams. Blue Jays aren't helping themselves. And you can complain about it being a tough division to be in, but show up. Prove that you are among the best in baseball in the toughest division in baseball. They have been losing within the division, and it's a very tough life when you do that. It's not seeing as much of the AL East this year helps a bit, but you've got to make some hay, get closer to 500 in the division, no matter how difficult it might be.
Keegan, what is your take on this whole Oakland A's reverse boycott where the fans are filling the stadium, chanting, sell the team? I'm not really sure what message they're trying to send to ownership, but whatever's happening seems to be working on the field. They've won 7 in a row. This is one of the worst teams in the history of the sport. So I mean, maybe the fans are onto something with this reverse boycott. Maybe they can make it a nightly occurrence.
Guys, this is amazing. And credit to the fans for trying to do something, taking collective action and showing that they care about this team. And the 7 wins in a row has blindsided me. I couldn't believe it even when it got to 4 or 5. Maybe they will avoid that all-time worst team in MLB history record, the most losses of all time. We'll see. They're going to be an interesting team up around the trade deadline. Anybody that has a heartbeat will probably be traded from Oakland at that point. I don't know what they'll look like on August 1st or 2nd, but we'll see. That was an interesting time. I've never seen a stadium full of people chant, "Sell the team," before, so that was a new one for me.
Bigger picture for the Jays here in the AL East. Did they miss their window to be the best team there?
That window's not getting any more open, I tell you. And it's about getting into the playoffs to leave yourself a position to make a run. You need to win the division.
Right.
You can't be going at the wild card, going out on the road or at home and hoping for a best 2 out of 3. Having those 5 games really helps you determine who the best team is. In a best 2 out of 3, one bounce goes one way. Suddenly you need to win 2 in a row. That window was open for them to go through. I haven't seen them go through it yet. And every single day the Orioles take the field, they are closing that window.
Keegan, would you agree with the assessment? We had a guest on last week, and we were talking about Manoah going down to Florida, whatever the hell he's doing down there in a complex league. I don't even know what that is. But he said the basis of everything down there is conditioning for him. Like he's got to get used to the pitch clock. And he was basically saying he's got to try to get his body in better shape to be able to handle the pitch clock. Have you heard any update, and also would you agree with that assessment?
I'd agree that has to be part of it. Now, number one, this can be tied to conditioning. Number two, Alek Manoah is just a huge guy. Even he makes me feel small. If me and my 5'10", 150-pound friend climb the stairs, I'm going to be a little more out of gas than my buddy is. So for Alek Manoah being a massive dude, you're talking 6'6", 280, getting that body through a delivery over and over, it's more work than Yusei Kikuchi has to do. It's more work than Jose Barrios has to do. So he needs to be not just in good shape, but in top-end shape to manage that body 15 seconds after 15 seconds. That was a major factor earlier this season, seeing him manage the pitch clock, because he couldn't do that thing he loves to do, and we've all seen it, when he steps behind the mound, takes a big, deep breath, takes the hat off, looks up to the sky, and collects himself. So that is a big part of it. He is down there in the pitching lab. It's to the point where we're talking about laboratories and secret rooms full of cameras. It's the new age of baseball, but more than anything, I think he needs to adjust to that pitch clock and get his confidence back. Confidence and adjusting to a pitch clock are not things that happen in a laboratory with computers. Those are mental and with old school coaching.
Keegan, quickly before we get you out of here, when you're in Baltimore, what kind of gets your attention feeding-wise? Is there crab cakes or something on the docket? A little brewery that you're interested in? Give us some insight on your routine there.
You know what? It's big on the crab cakes. I have to respect the local flavor. I do love my trips to Baltimore, the Paris of Maryland, I love to call it. But it's been a little bit more of a liquid diet this time, but appreciating the raw, natural beauty of Baltimore's Inner Harbor.
It is a gritty city.
Well, is that code for your smashing 100 beers every day?
It has character. It has character.
Well, it's known for the wire, right? That's how people refer to Baltimore.
Honest to God, we used to play. There used to be a minor league hockey team there called the Baltimore Skipjacks 100 years ago. You take your life into your hands going down there. There were some really rough areas around there. But we enjoyed ourselves. You're right. There is a few areas, watering holes you can go to.
There is. Yeah, the show that you mentioned is a documentary. I used to think it was a work of fiction. It's a documentary about the great city.
Yeah,
if you play it right, you find the right street to go down, you'll be well taken care of.
Keegan, if you see Omar coming tonight, go the other way. That would be my advice.
I'm listening for the whistle, baby.
Yeah, well done. Keegan, thanks for doing this, man.
You got it, guys. Take care.
That's Keegan Matheson from MLB.com. You guys fans of The Wire?
Yes, love that show. That was unbelievable. That's
Never
one
seen
of the
1 second of
what?
Well, I don't think that's crazy. I feel like if you haven't seen any of The Sopranos, that's crazier.
Well, he's never watched any Seinfeld either. Like that's the
that's a
thing.
little.
Like that's
No.
my point.
I watch like true crime and hockey and sports. That's
true crime.
That's it.
First 48 hours. Is that what it's called? That
I honestly just put it right in my veins. I want to see the guy get caught at the end every time.
Well, they talk. The best part is in the interrogation room. They just talk the person in a circle. Like, so you're telling me that that hammer just ended up in the back of your car? You're like, no. They switched their story how many times? Like,
no, you know what? I saw one the other day, Noodles. It was so gorgeous. I think it was Paul Azan. Paul Azan on the case is a sweet one too. The investigator goes, I got this dummy from Arkansas, and I have nothing on him. I'm going to go in there and lie about his DNA being in his old truck. I'm going to say I found his old truck from 16 years ago. And he goes, we got your DNA everywhere in the truck, and we know you were there. And he goes, you got me, I did it. and the guy's like, oh, my God, it worked.
Yeah.
He goes, I didn't have any. The guy could have said, I'm not talking anymore, walked out the door, and I would have never seen him again for the rest of his life because I had nothing. He goes, oh, you got me. You got my DNA. I'm done. I did it.
Always seek representation.
Always.
Would be my advice for individuals like that. Hour 3 of OverDrive continues. We have Dan Rapaport coming up. We'll get back to the Cup final. Vegas beating Florida 9-3 last night. Marchessault wins the Conn Smythe. Maybe we'll hear from Phil Kessel as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 2, TSN 1050, and the TSN app. So we wondered how it would play out if Vegas did win the Stanley Cup at home, which of course they did last night, beating Florida 9-3. How Gary Bettman would be received by the Golden Knights crowd. Now, there's a lot of reasons to believe that Vegas and the crowd was going to cheer Bettman, considering the expansion rules that were put in place, very favorable to the Golden Knights, helped them a ton in their pursuit of a Stanley Cup. And then you have the tradition, fellas, the tradition of booing Bettman.
They didn't, though.
It was exactly, and that was the most surprising aspect of last night, more so than the beatdown by the Golden Knights of the Panthers, was that Bettman, for the first time ever, got cheered. Vindication for Jerry.
He was enjoying himself.
Yeah,
like
he was like a guy at a wedding that just had 7 stiff vodkas, and he was like, I'm kind of liking this. And he was like, I'm going to be funny now. And then when he did his little routine, he was loving it.
He needs Seattle to win next year. They might cheer him as well, and then that's it. Then maybe the next expansion team that comes in, because it ain't happening again.
I never understood the booing. I know it's a tradition, but don't you think the fans would be fired up that this guy is going to hand the Stanley Cup to your team? That could be so. I'm asking. I'll ask Leaf fans: would you boo Gary Bettman if he's handing the cup over to your captain?
They would boo him.
Why
kind of Northeast market, they're booing him. They're booing him because they don't forget the lockouts, and it's like,
I get that.
We're not forgetting the lockouts, and you're getting booed regardless. That's just what's going to happen.
You and I should I lived 2 lockouts and a strike in '91.
No kidding.
We left some money on the table. Yeah.
So you booed the TV last night. That's what you're saying?
No, I didn't boo him because, through growth and growing this game, salaries went up. I was able to make more than I probably should have, put it that way, on certain situations.
Well, I mean, we know the partying that's going to go on, probably already has gone on in Vegas, will be obscene. And I think we're all curious to know what Phil Kessel's routine will be like from now until the Stanley Cup parade on Saturday afternoon. He was asked following the game by Jackie Redmond on TNT how it would play out following the Cup celebration.
How do you plan to celebrate tonight? With the boys.
Obviously, it's going to be a fun night, and try not to throw up.
Well, all right, good luck with that, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you hear the little at the end too? That's my favorite part of it.
Got to play it again because he is dying laughing to himself. He thinks he's hilarious. I love it. Can we play it one more time? Because he does start laughing. It's awesome.
How do you plan to celebrate tonight? With the boys.
Obviously, it's going to be a fun night, and try not to throw up.
Well, all right, good luck with that, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, it's so good, man. This guy is just
He's 3-time Cup champ.
3-time Cup champ. And we had this debate earlier about his Hall of Fame resume, which is really when it boils down to it, you talked about Marian Hossa, and this guy won a bunch of cups, had so much playoff success, That's what is the kind of differentiator in many respects. And guys like Kessel, Alex Pietrangelo wins his second Stanley Cup last night. I think he's probably bound for the Hall of Fame.
I think he is. But Pietrangelo is, he's got gold medals. Like, he's legit. Now, Pietrangelo is always in that Norris conversation, too. This is where
Has he ever won it, Jay? I don't think he's won one.
I don't think
he's been a finalist.
I think he's been a finalist. But for me, there's always, when I looked at somebody and I judged them as a Hall of Famer, at some point they had to be close or, in top 5 of their profession. So you look at certain players and you're like, that guy was one of the best goaltenders on the planet. That's a Hall of Famer. Or that's one of the best forwards. And you start to get down and, that guy's the 30th best player in the league. Like, you're like, okay, I get it. They're great players, but maybe not the next tier. So Hall of Famers for Alex Pietrangelo is known as one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League. So that's special. So and then you look at all the accolades. That's what makes him a Hall of Famer for me, is the special players, they separate themselves, and then the guys who are on the cusp, it's more of your flavor, who you like.
We need Pietrangelo to get into the Hall of Fame so Koliakovo can do his introductory speech. And, of course, they were D partners in St. Louis. I think in Pietrangelo's rookie year, Carlo taught him everything he knows. The number of bangs that will be yelled at the Hall of Fame for the first time ever, that's something everyone deserves to see.
Bang!
Was Carlo was Carlo his D partner when he has that famous meme in the corner? Was that with St. Louis or was that with Detroit?
I think it might have been. It might maybe a little bit before Pietrangelo's time.
When he went sliding into the corner and then
a very famous
you
clip.
Don't see him, and then you see him come up over the glass, and he goes down with wincing in pain.
I couldn't believe when I saw that for the first time. It's one of my favorite things on earth. Yeah. I think I watched it 15 times.
Joe from the Bridge will be able to pull it up, but that meme, like, that'll live forever on Coco's resume.
Yes.
Listen, and we all have YouTube clips. I've got
Not me, actually. I have zero.
Well, I've got a few that aren't favorable. I did what I did in Detroit and have to live with it, but ultimately, Coco, he has that meme where he looked like he was in a lot of pain, put it that way.
Yeah. Oh, that's too bad for him. But he's got Pietrangelo, his buddy.
Yeah, that's his boy.
Got his second Stanley Cup.
I think Petro's a Hall of Famer.
I think that is very much the case. I think Brooks Koepka's a golf Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. He's only 33. He's going for yet another major. Of course, he wins the PGA, and he's amongst the betting favorites at the U.S. Open this week at LA Country Club. We'll head there next to talk to Daniel Rapaport from Barstool Sports. It's Hour 3 of Overdrive, TSN2, TSN 1050, and the TSN app. The third hour of Overdrive continues here on TSN2, TSN 1050, and the TSN app. I'm Aaron Korolnek in for Brian Hayes. Noodles is here, the O-Dog is here, and Dan Rapaport is on the line from Barstool, the Foreplay podcast. And as my understanding, I'm a huge Dan Rapaport fan. We all are. But it does sound like Tommy Fleetwood's caddy is not the biggest Dan Rapaport fan. Dan, I'm going to let you explain, of course. Tommy Fleetwood.
They were having fun, weren't they?
Well, I mean, Tommy Fleetwood, Nick Taylor in the playoff here in Canada, and Tommy Fleetwood's caddy didn't like one of your tweets. Please take it away.
He didn't like one of my tweets, but you know what? That's okay. We're allowed to disagree. I think that's people are thinking that just because, listen, it's part of I'm in the opinions business, right? And because I go to a lot of these events, oftentimes I have to face the music after I give one of these opinions. He didn't like that I voiced my opinion without being there. I think he made the wrong decision. I still think he made the wrong decision, and life goes on. But no, I knew I was going to get a dressing down because I got a text from him that morning being like, "I'm going to kick your ass when I see you," or something like that. So no, we're all friends. It's good. We can all disagree and move on. But it was definitely fun to get that on camera.
Dan, can you talk about the golf course? It doesn't seem to be your tradition. Like when you think of U.S. Open, you kind of think of Northeast, I guess,
Yep.
and long rough and really long. And like this is kind of off the beaten path. Can you just talk about how cool it looks? Amazing on TV. Can you just talk about how cool the course is?
Yeah, I'm behind the sixth green right now, watching Rory McIlroy hit like full flop shots from just short of it in the fairway. It's very different. It's very, very different. I was very curious. I'm from this area, so I've played this golf course a bunch of times, and I was very curious how they were going to set it up because it is, like you said, it's not your typical Bethpage black. That Roy just almost pulled out, which was a noisy buzzer, but it's not Bethpage black. It's not wing foot. There are a lot of birdie holes. There are a lot of holes where if you hit it in the fairway, you're going to have a wedge in, and you're going to be able to attack. I was a little concerned that they were going to kind of U.S. Open-ify it, if that's a term, where just they were going to put rough everywhere around the greens and kind of turn it into a slog, but they haven't. Now, that could mean that we see a lot more birdies than you're used to seeing. There'll definitely be a bunch of big numbers, but I think there's going to be more birdies, more birdie opportunities. I wouldn't be surprised if the winning score is somewhere near double digits under par, which isn't a bad thing. I think as long as it's a compelling show and as long as they identify the best players, I think that's good for everybody. So I'm happy if they didn't, grow a bunch of rough everywhere. There's obviously long rough, but the fairways are pretty wide. They're definitely birdie holes. There are a couple kind of par 4.5s. The first hole will play easy. 8 will play easy, and then there's a couple par 3s that are closer to par 4s. So 5 par 3s in total. Yeah, there's just a lot going on. That's very different than what you normally see at a major championship. It's not the kind of place that's just going to kick you in the sack repeatedly. He just pulled out a chip. So that's the other one.
I'm loving this.
Getting a little live on the ground. Yeah,
this is great. So there's no doubt, Dan, that Scottie Scheffler is going to have a bunch of birdie looks. I guess the question is, can he make any putts? As far as because he hasn't been doing it for the last couple of months. There's rumors that he's going to have a new putter in the bag. How do you assess Scottie Scheffler's chances at the U.S. Open, considering his struggles on the green, while contrasting how unbelievable he's been everywhere else?
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned, the fact that he's sustained the ball striking, makes me even more confident about him going forward. We've all played golf before, where you feel like you're playing, you're hitting it well, and then you can't make a putt, and it starts to bleed into your ball striking. Right? You start pressing, you start doing other things. Scottie's ball striking has improved. It's the best it's ever been, coinciding with this barren putting stretch. So if he just putted average at the Memorial, he would have won by a bunch. If he just putted average in Texas the week before that, he would have won by a bunch. So I think it's interesting that he's the clear favorite. I see him at kind of plus 700, plus 800. Everyone else is well into the double digits. So Scottie's the man to beat if he just putts average. And I think that's a huge confidence boost that he knows that he doesn't have to putt well. He doesn't have to putt very well. He just has to putt average, and the stats say that he'll be there with a chance, even if he doesn't putt average. So if he putts average, he could run away with it.
So you tweeted that you might think it's Brooks' week.
Yeah,
how good does he look?
Yeah, he's just got that energy, doesn't he? You don't want to throw around Tiger comparisons, but the guy's won 5 majors and he's 33 years old, and he seems to be up there every single time that one of these happens. And it's funny, you think, maybe this will be the one where he takes the foot off the gas, and then he shoots 68 on Thursday, and you're like, yep, we're just in for a Brooks week again. So I love his chances. He was talking about in his press conference about how there's a lot of chaos right now. There's obviously guys are being asked about the merger, about the rollback, all these different questions. And I think the more distractions there are, the more he likes his chances, because he has a preternatural ability to just tune it all out and to just focus on the golf. So yeah, it would not be a surprise at all to see him do it again. Number 6 would be crazy. He'd equal Phil. It'd be insane.
Dan, do you have any update on Jay Monahan? I was reading some tweets yesterday, and I didn't know if they were people being idiots or something serious happened. Just what is going on with him?
Yeah, I haven't really heard much, not more than you guys do. I think it's a tough one. You don't want to speculate. What I will say is, when he took this job 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I don't think that this is what he had in mind. It's been a rather chaotic last couple of years. That I've felt very stressed about it, and all I do is talk about golf onto my phone. So, for him to be in the center of this and to know that, the way that people are talking about him and about the deal, and also, it's far from over. The feds are involved now, so that's a whole other layer of headaches. So, I don't know if it's just like a stress situation or something else is going on. Or, stress is obviously really bad for the body and could lead to something medical. I don't want to speculate, but I think everyone's hoping for a speedy recovery. But don't really have much more to add, unfortunately.
You were mentioning you're around Rory chipping there. How do you think that his game is going to round into form? It's crazy to think of how talented and how good he is, and that he hasn't won a major since 2014. Does this guy have a window until he's 54, or when do you think that he can? I mean, he probably does the way he hits a golf ball, but he kind of needs to strike, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think Phil has sort of moved the goalposts as far as longevity goes.
Sure.
The guy finished second in the Masters this year, and he's 18 years older than Rory. So, the thing about majors is you only get 4 of them per year. So, it sounds like a long time, but it's about 25 or 30 tournaments or 35 tournaments without winning, which is a lot, but it's, it's not, and he's had a bunch of chances. One thing I'm noting, and I was just going to ask him about this in a second here, is he's got 4 wedges in the bag this week, which is new. He had 46, 54, and then 60. So we had a big gap between the 46 and the 54, which is surprising given how far he drives it, because he has so many wedges into greens, and he's struggled a lot with his wedges recently. He's got this sort of body stops moving, arms keep going, left miss, long left, which, at any tournament is not good, but at a U.S. Open is disastrous. So it'll come down to his distance control, and I like that he's added another tool.
Dan Rapaport, our guest from Barstool Sports, the Foreplay podcast. Course familiarity this week is a little bit iffy considering LACC's never hosted a major. I don't believe ever hosted a PGA Tour event. Max Homa, a lot of people were talking about the 61 he fired at UCLA. I believe Patrick Cantlay held the course record before Max Homa did. How much do you think course familiarity plays into the result this week, Dan?
0. I mean, it's a different golf course than it was back then. It's a lot firmer. There's new tees. That was 10 years ago. And, I think it's one of those overrated narratives about, these guys are so good and the yardage books are so good. These caddies are so smart that they're able to dissect a golf course, whether you played it a million times or you haven't played it at all. Now, does being comfortable around a place help and knowing sight lines? Yes, but there are 30 golfers who are good enough to win on any golf course any week, just as long as they execute. So I wouldn't really look into it too much.
Dan, I had to work on SportsCenter last night, and one of my colleagues, I have to think that he was lying to me. But before we went on, he said Ricky Fowler said on an 80-yard par 3 he might lay up. And I said, why don't you shut your mouth, because that's not possible. What's he going to do, kick it down to the front of the hole? And then, what is that real? What the hell is that comment?
I actually, Shane Lowry said the same thing to me. He was talking about 15, and I was like, oh, just lay up. He's like, I saw that. What is he talking about? I don't know if that was just kind of trying to make a point, but I walked by that hole today, and I definitely don't see a place where you can really lay up, given how much crap is around that green. But if there's one hole that is going to draw some complaints from these players who love to moan, it will be that one.
They love moaning, don't they, Dan?
They love it. They love a good moan. They love a good moan. They feel like if they can't shoot 65, then the golf course is not fair. But I think if there's one hole that people are going to be pissed about, it's probably that one.
Dan, thank you for doing this. Congratulations on the wedding as well. I know you got married last week. What a week to get married. The PGA and LIV merge and Canadian Open and the U.S. Open. So you picked a great time for that. We do appreciate you doing this for us. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. Yeah.
All right, Dan Rapaport from Barstool gets married. And by the way, PGA, LIV, the DP World Tour, they're merging. You better get back to work, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, we all appreciate what we do, but if you're a golf fan, and I'm sure he's like, oh, it's my job, but he's in tight with the big dogs. They all know him. They all stop and chat, and he gets to toot around. And he's just hanging around watching Rory hit lob shots from 20 yards away from the green. If you're a golf lover, you'd be saying, how do I get on that?
Not a bad job. Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of golf sickos here at TSN who are very envious of what Dan Rapaport does. And I think the three of us would consider ourselves that. Sure.
I couldn't figure out if the caddy, if he was serious or not.
You got to watch the video. So Tommy Fleetwood's caddy is has a thick accent.
Well,
probably has 45 beers a night.
I was going to ask you guys, though, it looked like in the playoff shots that he was arguing with Tommy on one shot.
Well, they were going back and forth about one of them where Tommy was like, I want to go for it. And the caddy's like, oh, why don't we lay it? I don't know. But the bottom line, they were standing around in the circle, and Dan Rapaport's on a podcast with Barstool, and they got microphones, and they love chewing the fat with the guys, and the caddy just went up, and it was friendly kind of fire where it was like, what the hell are you talking about, chirping Tommy? Yeah. But Rapaport's got to have the stones to, like he said, he's in the opinions business, to say this is a bad call, and he's got to deal with the consequences of showing up there, and the caddy approaching him saying, why'd you say that?
Yeah. Well,
but it's the one thing I don't get about that aspect, Jamie, it's Dan Rapaport never goes up to the player face to face and says, why the hell did you hit that club? You know what I mean? Yeah. He has to voice his opinions and it's public, but it doesn't work kind of both ways.
Yeah, exactly. they have no problem when he's saying great things about his player.
And that's
right?
the other thing. Dan Rapaport compliments golfers so many times. How many phone calls does he get from an agent, a caddy, or a player saying, I really appreciate those nice things you said?
Well, you and I get it all the time.
Oh, I was going to say.
I pump the tires of these guys down the street like I've never seen before. One negative comment, their dads are pissed, everyone's pissed. It's like, well, okay, whatever.
Well, that's the business we've chosen, gentlemen. So, there's pros and cons. But, yeah, you got to be honest. If you're not honest and you're not authentic, you're not doing your job properly.
I know, but I think we deliver information, honest with respect. And it's not like we're disrespectful to a player. So, when you do say something that's critical, a lot of times those players know, they're the first ones to know they screwed up. We're just pointing out, hey, that was a bad play by that situation. But when they get mad, you're like, I'm just pointing out what you actually would have acknowledged. But it just, sometimes it's personal and they think it is personal. And that's what's disappointing in this business where.
My philosophy early on was just not to use words like, oh, this is an unfortunate play for him. No, it's not unfortunate. You're a big league player. You're supposed to be good, and you made a terrible decision, and it's a garbage play. Like
Garbage play.
It's not true. Okay, garbage is too much, but you just say that's a terrible play. Like there's two other things you could have done with that puck, but you picked the worst option, and it didn't work out. Terrible play.
Well, you brought up that par 3 that is, I think, 75 yards. If they put the flag at the front of the green, it's 75 or 80 yards. There's also a par 3 this week that is 290 yards. Yeah. And I saw John Rahm's hitting 3-wood into it. I mean, I don't know what's more egregious, an almost 300-yard par 3 or the 75-yard par 3.
Dude, the U.S. Open always has one. They always love a little rinky-dink 100-yard par 3. And then they're going to throw one at you. That's 300. But they want it on a card one day, and just because it says 300 doesn't mean it plays 300
downhill,
every day.
Yes.
It's downhill. It might play like 240, 230, but they want it one day to play 300.
But don't, like the short one, isn't that just to jam them up?
Well, I will say, and I hate to take a shot at our friend James Duthie, but his famed hole-in-one at King's Riding was on like an 80-yard par 3, which
That's not true. It was a 150-yard par 3.
No. I played that golf course a bunch of times. Maybe the back tees, maybe a hunch, but you're hitting a 56-degree wedge into that green all the time.
Thank you for that information.
Yes.
Oh, Duthie told you it was a 150-yard par 3?
Oh, yeah. Duthie also pulled a stunt at the golf tournament that was pretty outrageous, but I'll save him on that one.
He's going to hate me for bringing that up. But anytime I hear short par 3s, I think King's Riding, 4th hole, James Duthie, hole-in-one. It's the worst hole-in-one you could have. Still a hole-in-one, but it's the worst one.
Yeah. He took all of my gift cards from the Canadian Open. I had a bunch of them, and I was like, do you mind getting me some stuff if you got time, like you were going to be around there? And $400 worth, and all I got was one crummy hoodie. And I was like, well, what about what is the rest of it? And he's, I didn't use it. I guarantee his kids are dolled out head to toe.
Canadian Open
swag.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh, man. That's some good stuff. I do have my FanDuel best bets, which are brought to you by FanDuel. Bet on all your favorite teams on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Garrett Cole versus Justin Verlander tonight. What a pitching matchup. I'm on the under of 8 runs on FanDuel, and I hate to do it. I'm fading the Oakland A's. I know they've won 7 in a row, but that's irrelevant. It's still the A's, and it's still Tampa on the other side. And lastly, I'm on Jose Barrios and the Jays to beat the Baltimore Orioles on the road. Today's best bets, they are powered by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and find thousands of ways to wager. Please play responsibly, 18 plus, and physically located in Ontario. What a treat it was to work with you guys. I've never actually done a show with both of you together. I've worked with you individually, Jamie, of course. So, Jamie, you and I started at TSN 1050 in the same week.
Yeah.
Blue Lunch, and way back. I was Zoe's mentor early on in his radio career. I like to think I still am. Fair assessment, Jeffrey?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's fair. Harsh, but fair. Well, we had some times. We've had a good run here, so no doubt. So it's been a blast, no doubt, and a lot of good times still to come. A tough day in our industry, no doubt, today, but I think everybody who was affected by what happened at Bell Media and CTV and TSN, will come out the other side and
we're thinking
hopefully just as successful as they were here. So
yeah, and people reading tweets and reading information, and I don't know if they think it's like sports where it's like, oh, a guy got sent down to the minors. Like, these are our friends, and it's their livelihoods, and it's been taken away. It's pretty damn disappointing, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's been a tough day. Tough day for everyone, for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, all you can do is, try to entertain, and that's what we did here for the last 3 hours. We've got the Jays and the Orioles tonight. I am really curious to see how Barrios pitches, and considering how they have to use the bullpen tonight. Like, they had to burn through a bunch of guys yesterday because Bassett just got torched by Baltimore. So the Jays bullpen is not exactly the cream of the crop when it comes to baseball, especially after their first couple of guys.
Dude, why don't they address it? Like, why wait another whole season? And everyone I talk to that's kind of into the Jays and knows the sport around our building, they're like, that bullpen stinks. Why not address it? Like, there's a guy at work that cannot stand Simber. Like, every time Simber gets up there with that underhand delivery, he's like, this guy's going to get just rocked. And the last time he went out there, he got rocked. How long are you going to keep watching that? I don't know.
I think he led the American League in appearances last year, did Simber, but he lost it. It's a reliever in baseball. They're so hit and miss. One year they're great, the next year they're junk.
Yeah,
how about get some other ones?
He's that sidearm. Like, he's a deep sidearm. Like, it's a unique delivery, put it that way.
Maybe they figured out how it goes.
Well, they need a good game tonight. They need to get it going.
Yeah, and Baltimore is just a wagon. I mean, that team is nasty. And you can't fall too far behind in the AL East. You're not going to catch Tampa. You might not catch Baltimore. You might not catch the New York Yankees. But the Jays have to get it rolling tonight. And hopefully the bats get it going, too. I mean, Vladdy has been so underwhelming. Like, let's see a nice, torrid hot streak from Vladdy Jr. It's got to be coming at some point soon. Maybe tonight is the night for him. So it's been a treat, fellas. Jim Taddy in this seat tomorrow. You're going to have to remind me how to close this show. Noodles?
No, it was go.
Okay.
Go to O.
We're going to be back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.
There we go.
Night.